Having a super fantastic sparkling day. Welcome to Porchlight Letters podcast number 2520. Whew, getting up in numbers. Today we are talking about where was your family when Queen Elizabeth II passed away? That was almost 4 years ago. I was like looking up the date of her passing and so I could remember where I was. I did journal a little bit about it. I just don't know where that journal is. I've got a lot of journals with partial entries in there. So I had to go and have a look to see when she passed away. It was the 8th of September, 2022, almost 4 years ago. And I'm like, was it really that long ago? And I had to sit there and think, yeah, I guess it was. So where were you when she passed away? How did you hear the news? What did where were you when you heard the news? Who were you with? Did you watch the state funeral that took place on the 19th of September, 2022? What memories do you have of her reign? Do you have photos, newspapers, or items you kept? Were you in the crowds that lined the streets of London for her state funeral? Were you in the crowds that were able to walk past the coffin and pay your respects? Where were you? Between the 8th of September 2022 and the 19th of September 2022? Where were you on those 11 days? What were you doing? What do you recall about it? So Queen Elizabeth II reigned in England. Sorry, let me start this again. Sorry, my brain is going like about 1,000 miles an hour right now. I just got off a mastermind coaching call, and it was amazing, and there's lots of ideas now flowing through my head, so I have to try and do a podcast. Thankfully I've got notes written down, otherwise it's going to be all over the place, and if you see me stop and write something down, it means another idea just popped into my head from the call. It's busy processing at about 1,000 miles an hour, so I apologize for that. Okay, so Queen Elizabeth II reigned for more than 70 years, making her the longest serving monarch in British history. For many people, she was the only monarch they had ever known. I will attest to that. I'm turning 60 in December. She's the only queen I have ever known. And so on the 8th of September 2022, news of her passing spread quickly around the world. Television programs were interrupted, flags were lowered, and millions paused to reflect on the end of an extraordinary reign. 11 days later, on the 19th of September, people across the globe watched her state funeral, marking the close of that era. Whether you follow the British royal family closely or not, chances are you remember where you were when you heard the news. You may have been at work, at home, with family, traveling, or perhaps you watched the funeral with loved ones. Those memories have now become part of your own family's history. From now on, your children and grandchildren may ask what it was like when Queen Elizabeth II passed away. They don't want to know what happened. They want to know where you were, who you were with, what you felt, and how the moment was remembered in your family. What do I remember? I was living in the RV at the time. I was at the campground in Sun City, Arizona. It was before we moved into the house. In fact, it was a few months before we moved into that. I think we moved the following year. That was 2022. Yes, we moved into the house the following year because when the coronation took place the following year, I was still in the RV. And it is also with the coronation when I got where is it? There is my tiara right there. So yeah, we got that. Where do my notes go? I've got so many note windows open. Sorry. Let's see, where was I? Okay, so we're living in the RV. We're in Sun City, living in the RV park. We've been there for a year. We just moved there because we only stayed at the park for a couple of years. We've been there a year. Yeah, we've been there a year. Trying to think, 23. Yeah, that would be about right. I'm trying to put the timeline together in my head. It doesn't always work when there's a whole bunch of other stuff going. So yeah, I was in the RV. I don't even know what day it was. What day of? I think it was a midweek. 8th of September. This is what you can get on live. 2022. What day of the week was it? 8th of September 2022. It was a Thursday. Okay, so it was a Thursday. And then the funeral was on the 19th. Oops, hang on. That's not going to like that. You don't want to see what I wrote. And it was a Monday. So she passed on a Thursday, and then the 19th of September was the state funeral, and that was on the Monday. What I remember about that time, I was working when the news came through, and I didn't have regular TV. I just streamed everything. Everything was streamed. But I happened to find like CNN channel, and they just had it, the YouTube channel, and they were just doing this big, I got onto YouTube on the TV in the RV, and got onto the CNN channel, and they were just live broadcasting the whole thing about the Queen's passing and what was happening, and about her body being moved and all of this sort of stuff, and people who were coming up to Balmoral, which is where she passed. Was it Balmoral? Yeah, Balmoral. Family arriving in Balmoral. The next day, Princess Anne escorting the Queen's body with her husband down back to London, from Scotland back to London. They had a whole procession in Scotland for her as a farewell thing. Then they boarded her on a plane that flew down to London, just out of London there, and then they drove through into London to put her body in, to lay in state. They had this whole procession and everything. I remember having it going constantly while this was all happening. Zeffie was sort of like, what the heck's going on? So I was having to explain it to her, that what had happened. I'm explaining to her about the Queen and who the Queen was and what she had done, and da-da-da-da-da. And she's the only Queen I had known my entire life. The only royal I had, the only monarch I had known for my entire life up to that point. And then I was sort of like, oh, damn, now we've got a king. Ugh. Nothing against King Charles III. Absolutely nothing against him. It's just like, oh, now we have a king. I just wanted another queen. We've got a king instead, but that's okay. That's okay. That's how it all goes. I totally get that. It was just like, oh, well, now we have a king. Oh, it's just one of those moments. It's like when Pope John Paul the whatever he was, 12th, 13th, whatever he was, when he passed, it was sort of like, well, he's the only pope I had ever really known, because up until he was elected to become pope, couldn't even tell you who the pope was before him. I'm not Catholic, but I remember the passing of the pope before John Paul. What was he? John Paul the pope. Pope John Paul II. That's right. I mean, I remember when that happened. That was in let's see, it said 1978. October 1978. I know where I was living at the time when we heard the news. We talked about it in school. I was in primary school, and we talked about it in school, about what was happening and everything else, with all of that, and how they did the conclave and what the conclave was, and kind of how it was run. I will tell you, a really cool movie to go watch is Conclave. It was very interesting to watch that, and I know it's been Hollywoodized. Most of them are. So you got to remember there is some truth in there, and then there's some Hollywoodization in it. But it's totally getting us off topic. So it's just kind of knowing, all your life you'd known this person to be in that position, for as long as you can remember. The Queen, she was there my entire life up until she passed away in 2022. Now I've had King Charles III since then for the last almost 4 years. So it's very interesting how something you have had your entire life suddenly disappears out of your life, some figure that you've always looked up to. I actually got to see the Queen when she toured New Zealand for her 25th silver wedding, for her 25th, for her silver jubilee. She had a platinum jubilee leading up to that year, because it was the 6th of February in 1952 when she became Queen, and when her father passed away, long before I came along. So she became Queen on the 6th of February 1952, and that started her reign. And for her 25th Jubilee in 1977, her Silver Jubilee, she toured New Zealand, and she happened to be, and I was dressed up in brownies or Girl Guides at that time. I was in blue. So I was dressed as a Girl Guide at the time. When we were living in Fielding, I had been a brownie, now I was a Girl Guide. I think that was right. Yeah, I was now a Girl Guide. So we were all there in our blue uniforms. We got taken through to Palmerston North, and we found out, and we got a place to sit on the side of the road there in the streets there, and we waved as she went past. So that's when I got to see her. It was just a glimpse, but it was really exciting because we got to see her and wave these little, and we all had these little New Zealand flags that we could wave as well. It was really cool. Her and Prince Philip So that was really cool to see that and be part of that. I've watched all of her children get married. Watched the live telecast of Princess Anne when she first got married, Prince Charles when he then got married to Lady Diana Spencer. Then there was Prince Andrew, who got married to Sarah Ferguson. And then there was Prince Edward, who got married to Sophie, can't think of her last name. So I watched those 4 children. I then watched the announcements of royal births, of seeing the babies for the first time, their first public appearance and things. Not so much with Princess Anne's children. Don't remember seeing her on the steps of the hospital with her 2 children, but from Prince William onwards, seeing them standing on the steps the day that they went home with the baby and that sort of thing. So I got to see Prince George being presented, Princess Charlotte, Prince Louis. Also got to see Princess Beatrice and Eugenie presented, and then I didn't see Prince Andrew's children presented. But then following on from that, now I've seen the televised broadcasts of Prince William's wedding, Prince Harry's wedding. Who other weddings have I seen? I don't think I've seen any others. But, it's like growing up with this other family out there, and just watching all the different milestones that they had achieved and the places they got to go and see, and some of the crazy things they got to do and see and all that sort of stuff, which was kind of cool. It was very cool. And then to hear of her passing, it was like a family member had died, almost. I remember I did get a little emotional about it, because it was an end of an incredible reign that she had and she had accomplished so much during her reign. And there was just so much going on that she was part of, that she addressed, things that she addressed and things like that. It was just an incredible woman who had accomplished a huge amount in 70 years on the throne. So, it was a little emotional. Then watching the coffin laying in state and seeing members of the public coming through, then they would stop. Then her grandchildren came down. So there was Prince William, Prince Harry, Queen Anne's children, Zara and Philip and Zara, and then Princess Eugenie and Beatrice was there, and then Lady Louise, and I can't think of her younger brother's name right now, but the 4 children's children then came down, and they were there for 30 minutes doing doing their thing, standing around the coffin with their heads bowed for about 30 minutes before they were then relieved by the guards. That was very emotional to watch as well. That's how you get emotions come up. Watching the state funeral and the whole process of that. I mean, it was this hadn't been done in 70 years. This hadn't been done in 70 years since King George VI passed away, Queen Elizabeth II's father. This hadn't been done, where a queen was decrowned, because they had the different pieces on top of the coffin, and removing the orb and the scepter and the crown, things like that. There was this whole process of doing that, and it was really interesting to watch because I had never seen it. And I remember that. And I remember I was talking with my mum and dad at one point, and I said to them, I says, what do you remember about when Queen Elizabeth became queen? When King George VI died, what do you remember about that? And then her coronation. And I asked this as we were getting ready for Prince Charles III's coronation. And my mum said to me, she said, well, you have to remember, I was like 10 at the time. We didn't have a TV. We just had the radio. I remember hearing it on the radio, and then for the coronation, we just all sat around the radio and kind of just listened to what was going on, but wasn't really paying. I was 10. I wasn't really paying attention. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. And Dad didn't have any recollection of it at all. But no, my grandmother, she would have been sitting in front of that radio just listening to every single word. But of course, she wasn't around to ask. So take those times to acknowledge the memories of these people that have been part of your life in some way, not directly, but indirectly, with how they govern and ruled and things like that. And then take a few minutes to write down your memories while they're still fresh. If you have newspaper clippings, photographs, commemorative items, or even a screenshot from that day, label them with names, dates, and places, and the stories behind them. I have a journal somewhere where I wrote down when the Queen passed away and all of that sort of stuff. I believe I have a couple of magazines and newspaper articles, and I don't have the newspapers. I have a couple of magazines commemorating her life tucked away in a box somewhere. What else do I have? And the same for King Charles being coronated. I also have I was watching a program on BBC America where they broadcasted his reign, and I had access to that and his coronation and stuff. And they also had replays available. And so I thought, well, I'll just go back and take notes of the replays, because I was taking some notes during the coronation about what happened and things like that, and things about history that the announcers talked about. But I didn't finish writing my notes as I was watching the coronation. I thought I'll go back and watch the replay, which I did go back and start watching the replay, but I never finished watching the replay. And then, of course, I cancelled my BBC America subscription because I was moving to New Zealand. And so I never did get to see the end of that thing. But I will find it somewhere and go through and take notes of the day, because it was a pretty monumental day, and it was the day that I wore my tiara. I actually ordered my tiara off Amazon that day. It cost me $14, same day delivery, and it was delivered in time for the start of the coronation. I had no intention of getting one, so suddenly on the day I thought, let's get a tiara. We've got to commemorate this thing. So I'm sitting there in my nightshirt with my tiara on, and there's a picture on my Facebook page somewhere. It's a purple nightshirt with my tiara on, sitting in the recliner on the RV watching the coronation. And Zeffie was curled up somewhere. Like, what are you doing? I said, I'm watching the coronation. And so she went and got on her bed on the windowsill so she could poke her nose out behind the curtains and do whatever she wanted to do at that point in time as well. And then your today's family tree challenges. Ask a family member where they were when they heard that Queen Elizabeth II passed away. What do they remember most about that day? Record their story, because today's memories become tomorrow's family history. And let us know in the comments below some of your memories about that day. And with that, we are out of here. Go out and have a super fantastic sparkling. Oh, now I've got the hiccups. Super fantastic sparkling evening, and we'll catch you guys back here at 6 p.m. Pacific tomorrow for our next challenge for tomorrow. So until then, have a super fantastic sparkling evening. Hei konera.